Hey everyone, welcome to video number 7 of the UE5 Vehicle tutorial series. In this video we'll be focusing on the Niagara part of the skid mark and smoke system. I'll be making this tutorial in two parts because it's a lot of ground to cover. The Niagara part of it in itself is worth its own tutorial because it's very complex. This whole interface for the Niagara is really crowded. There's a lot of options, menus, submenus, variables, and mathematical equations you can set variables with. It's insane. I've never seen anything like this. I have a hard time wrapping my head around it myself. And so let's focus on just that for now. And part 2 will be about setting up the vehicle blueprint to be using this Niagara system. Before we get started, if you don't know already, I've set up a Patreon page in which you can subscribe and get access to this project. Also, if you check the video description, you will find a link to the Discord channel. There's now a good bunch of people on there. We're having quite a lot of fun, so feel free to join in. Also in the video description is the download link for these two custom-made textures that I drew in Photoshop just for you guys. The poof texture is going to be the cloud or the smoke. It's got two channels, red and blue. Red is, sorry, that's blue. Red is the outline of it. Blue is the, that's green. Blue is the color in the middle. And so if you grab red and subtract blue, you get just the outline here. Red would be the opacity mask, if you will, and blue would be just the center color that will be changing in the particle system. And so let's start with creating the two materials we're gonna need. Let me quickly check my microphone is working, because I've recorded this tutorial before. 35 minutes, microphone didn't work. Alright, okay, so let's create the material for the poof and then the skid by right clicking the texture, create material. Poof matte is a decent name, we'll leave it at that. Open that. Now for the smoke I will be going with the blend mode masked. You can go with translucent. I myself really don't need to for this stylized smoke, and so just to save on performance I'll be going with masked. Also, I do not want the smoke to react to the light, so in the shading model I will be selecting unlit, and that's it. Now, as I mentioned, red channel is going to be your opacity mask, and the emissive color. When you create a material for a particle system, you have access to a variable here that is called particle color, which is just like a vector 3, but you can set it directly in the particle system, which means you can change it at runtime using timelines or float variables or whatnot. And so we'll be grabbing that color and multiplying it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add, no, actually, no, I'm messing that up. I'm gonna add to the particle color the outline, because I want the outline to be white all the time and only control the color of the middle. And so the outline would be red minus blue, so a subtract node. Red minus blue give us our outline, which we're going to add to the color. And so we're gonna have to clamp this in between 0 to 1, plug that into the emissive color. Now, just for the sake of demonstration, don't actually do this at home. I will be placing a vector 3, constant 3 vector, sorry, just to show you what that's gonna give us. Let's set that to a nice blue shade. Give it a minute to compile a shader. I have a weird bug here. Every time I open a new window I have to do this, deactivate the automatic, set this manually, otherwise I don't see anything. This is so annoying. So as you can see now, by subtracting the red and blue and getting the outline and adding that to the color, the outline is always going to be white. And that's what I want for this the smoke. You can do really anything you want in that material. With the two channels here, you have a lot of options, such as having different opacities for the outline and the center color, or having two separate colors for the outline and the middle. Or you can just use the red channel and have only one color. But this is what I'm doing. This is what I think looks best. So let's plug back the particle color into the add node, and this is it for the smoke material. Now, because I'm doing materials, I'll be doing the one for the skid marks as well. So right click the skid texture, create material, skid matte. There's a decent name again. Now this one, skid mark, is basically a stain on the ground. So again, we don't want it to interact with the light. So default lit would be set to unlit. The blend mode here, I'll be setting to translucent, because unlike the smoke, this one has gradients in it, and it's not just an on-off mask. Otherwise that would look pretty bad. Again, particle color. Let us multiply the alpha of the particle color with a multiply node. Let's multiply that by the red channel. Any channel would do, but I like to use the red. That's what I do all the time. It's kind of a habit now. So the result of that goes into the opacity, and the particle color would go into the emissive color. And this is it. That's all you need to do. And we're done with the materials. Let's save everything in case of a crash. And right click in here, select Niagara system, create an empty system, because we want to start fresh. Otherwise we're going to have a bunch of things we're not going to use that we're going to have to delete, and it's just going to be very confusing. So let's go ahead and create an empty system to start with a fresh slate. Now I will be calling this one Niagara drift marks. Double click that to open it. And so the fun begins. As you can see, you have a bunch of variables on your left here that you can choose from. And this little thing here that I haven't used at all yet. Still don't know what that's used for. And so let's right click anywhere in the graph, add a new emitter. Let's again go for an empty one. And we'll name it something that is going to allow us to differentiate the smoke and the skid. So we'll call it smoke. The very first thing you can do is select your material, which would be the poof material we just made, poof matte. And also, again, because of that bug, remove automatic, set that to -1 to get sort of the same lighting as you would in the scene. And now we can see we don't have anything, because the empty emitter doesn't spawn anything by default. So we're gonna have to go into the emitter update and add a spawn rate. Now that could be anything. I'm gonna set it to 10 for the sake of this demonstration. And as you can see now, they all spawn on top of each other with the same scale, the same rotation, and the same color. So you really only see one that's kind of always there. we're about to change that. Let's go into the, oh boy, where are you? Okay, let's go into the initialize particle. The lifetime, again, for the sake of demonstration, let's go with, instead of a direct set, let's go with a, not a random actually, even worse. We can click that little arrow here, and instead of a float, we're gonna set select float from array, wouldn't make sense, random range float. And so we can here, lifetime mode, let's say anywhere from 1 to 2 seconds, right? The color mode would be direct set. And again, as you see here, we can select the color of the center of the smoke with the outline always being white. Now what I did was I've made the color of the center a slight gray, just so we can see that outline a little bit, but really tire smoke should be white, so it's okay to just make it white. And now here, still in the initialize particle, we also have the sprite section in which we can set the size, for example. Again, a random uniform, anywhere from 60 to 90. And you can already see some variation in here because they don't spawn all the same size. But they all spawn on top of each other. Let's just make sure I don't forget anything here. And I did not. Okay, now let's fix that, all the smoke spawning on top of each other, with a shape location, which would be in the particle spawn section here. Click the little plus. Unfortunately, I cannot zoom in any more than that, so all of the text and buttons are going to be incredibly small and hard to read. It's the case for me as well. I really should be putting my glasses on right now. I don't know why they did that. Everything is so small and crowded and hard to read. But whatever. Particle spawn, press the plus. We will add a shape location. And already you can see the improvement. The smoke is not spawning in the same place anymore. This is kind of a big area. Really, the smoke is only going to be spawning underneath the tire. You don't want the smoke to spawn on top of the car, so we need that area to be smaller. I'm going to use a cylinder because the spawn area is going to be flat, which is going to be just above the ground. So the height should be something like 10, and the radius as well could be 10. Nah, what the hell, let's make it 15, just so you can see it better. And that would be it for the shape location. Now, something else we're going to do is add velocity to it to simulate wind, but also because smoke is lighter than air, and it will go up with time. And it adds a movement to this whole particle system. So again, in the particle update, I believe, yes, particle update, we will add add velocity. No, we're actually doing that in the spawn. I'm sorry about that. So particle spawn, add velocity. Now you can see we're getting a bunch of errors. That is because the add velocity is going to have a few dependencies, such as the solve forces and velocity here. We're just going to click fix issue. And now you can see the velocity is working. It is a bit high though. Let's set it to 25 here on the Z instead of 50. That's better. And let's add some negative X velocity as well. Let's try minus 100. Because when the tire is spinning, it's kind of throwing the smoke backward a little bit. And so this is going to simulate that. Something else we can do is mess with the scale and rotation of that smoke, because as you can see now, all of these smoke particles have the same rotation. Now we would do that inside the initialize particle. We have the sprite rotation mode here, which will take from unset to random. And now, as you can see, rotation is random, so that's a little more variation. Again, that's a good thing. And the last thing we're gonna do is add a scale sprite size. So the particle will spawn small, grow bigger with time, and then get smaller again right before they die. So that would be in the particle update this time. Scale sprite size. And that gives us a curve we can use. Already just adding it here, you can see what it's gonna do. Let's tweak that curve a little bit. First key would be 0, 0. Let's actually have it spawn at 0.5 instead of 0. You can see what that does. It would also end at 0 so that it gets smaller before disappearing, as you can see right here. And let's make it a lot bigger in between these by right-clicking, adding a key. I'll set the time of that key to something like 0.3, which would be like the third of the way. And let's set the value here to 1.6. You can click here at the bottom left, zoom to fit all keys to make sure you can see all of the keys. And let's select the top one and make it smooth with ease in. And for some reason that changes the last variable. We're going to put it back to 0. And here you can modify those handles to be whatever you want. I'm going to go with something like this. And just like that, the smoke is finished. Let's actually place that in the world so we can get a better look at it. And if you move it around, you get a nice smoke trail. Now it is kind of sparse because of the spawn rate. I've set it to 10 just for demonstration purposes. Let's go ahead and go back into the spawn rate here. And I believe the one I use in the project is set to 20. Whenever you update, you have to delete the emitter and place it back to see the changes. And there you go. Now the particles look a little small still for some reason. Let's go have a look at that that curve. Scale sprite size. Yeah, okay. See that mill key here? When I've set it to be smooth, it changed the value of it too. Let's make it back to 1.6. Now the smoke should be a lot bigger. Because when you do a burnout, you want the smoke to cover the whole rear of the car, just for added effect. Oh yeah, this is more like it. Oh yeah, there you go. That looks good. You can see the smoke getting smaller as it disappears. And so this is the effect we're going for the smoke. Now what we need to do is also add the drift marks. Let's open that back up. Now for now we're going to disable the smoke emitter so we can test only the drift marks when we're done with them. Also now right click, add emitter, again select empty. There you go. Here instead of the sprite renderer, we're going to delete that, render little red plus, select the ribbon renderer, and on the right here, material, we're going to use our skid mat that we've created at the beginning. And we have a few parameters we need to set in order for this to work, because first of all we want it to be always pointing up, not facing the camera. And we do that by changing the facing mode here from screen to custom. Custom side vector, sorry. Very important. The side vector, because we're going to set it somewhere else. If I can remember where in all of these damn menus. Again, very, very confusing. Kind of frustrating, actually. I believe that is in the initialize particle. Yes, okay. In the initialize particle, go at the bottom, ribbon facing mode, go from unset to direct set, and instead of a vector here, we're going to click the arrow and search for system y-axis. So the y-axis is the sideway vector, which is fine because here in the ribbon we've set it to be facing the side vector, and so that ensures the skid marks are always pointing up. Okay, now we need to actually spawn some particles, and we're going to do that again in the emitter update. We will spawn per unit. We could be using spawn rate or even spawn per frame, but I will be using spawn per unit for performance reason, because that way we can spawn a particle every, here is 20, but let's set it to every 30 centimeters. And so we always have the same distance in between the particles. And I believe with just that we can already save that and try the skid marks. And we should see them appear. Oh no, because I forgot to set the size. Well, you can still kind of see them, but they're incredibly tiny. Let's delete that. Go back here. In the initialize particle, sprite, ribbon, or you can actually click the ribbon up top or go to the ribbon section. There's so many ways to reach so many different places. It is so confusing. I hate it. I'll be honest with you guys. The sooner I'm done with Niagara, the better I feel. It is so advanced. You can do so many crazy things, but as a result, it is so incredibly complex that even the most basic things become nightmare fuel. And so, ribbon width, I like to set it to 30. Oh, and since I'm here, lifetime, 5 seconds is a bit short, you barely have time to turn around to look at the skid marks that they already are disappearing. I like to set that to 15 instead. Oh, also the color, we need to set the color. Where is that gonna be? Yep, okay. So again, initialize particle, you have a color mode, which you can select direct set, and here you can choose what color your skid marks are gonna have. So let's set it to a super dark gray and almost fully opaque with 0.95. And if I didn't forget anything, we should be getting some pretty decent skid marks. Oh yeah, definitely. And you can see when you skid sideways, the line gets really thin, as it would. And when you skid forward, you get the full pattern of the tire threads. And this is it. Now if we enable both of them again, we'll be able to get a preview of what the whole thing together is going to look like, which is this. Pretty cool, huh? Now in part 2, because yes, this is it for this part 1 video, in part 2 we will add variables to that Niagara emitter that will be able to change in the vehicle blueprint. And so what we're going to change is the opacity of the skid mark, which is going to be depending on the velocity of the car. And so we get some nice fading in and out of the skid mark as the car slows down. And also we'll be changing the spawn rate of that smoke so that we can set it to either 0 or 20, because we don't want the smoke to spawn all the time. We only want it spawning when we're doing a burnout, but not when we're just having a regular skid because we pressed the handbrake. Let's actually show you the result once we'll be done with part 2. Right quick. As you can see, when I first accelerate, my wheels are spinning too fast, and so I'm kind of doing a burnout. And so smoke appears. And then if I just press the handbrake without any throttle, as you can see, I'm only skidding, and so we don't want any smoke there. And you can see the skid marks gradually fading out as the car slows down to a stop, which is really nice. And when you get going again, burnouts because the car has way too much torque. And also no traction control set up in the wheel blueprints. That's done on purpose. As you can see now, as soon as I release the handbrake, and the throttle is still pressed, as soon as the wheels unlock, they start overspinning and again produce that smoke. If I just do a straight up burnout, that's why I wanted the smoke to be big, to cover the whole back of the car like this. That's also why I added the backward velocity to it, so that it would really look like the wheels were throwing that smoke backward as they spin. Also, just as a bit of a teaser, I'll be showing you the blueprint that will spawn those effects. That's also going to show you why I'm not doing this all in one video, because that would be like a 2-hour long video and nobody wants to watch that. So spawning the emitters, we actually have 4 scene components here, which we only use for the location to spawn those. and then we get each wheel. We only want to do this for the two rear wheels, because doing that to the front wheels would be useless since they're not affected by the engine. And then we want to determine whether the wheels are either skidding or slipping, and then do a bunch of things, spawning the emitters attached so that they follow the car, setting the variable for the smoke amount, then updating the skid opacity. And when we're done and we're not skidding anymore, we detach the Niagara system. We don't destroy it, we detach it because we want the skid marks to stay visible. And so it gives you something like this. So this is going to be part 2 very shortly, actually using the Niagara system in the blueprint. But for this video, this is going to wrap it up. Again, thanks for watching to the end of the video. Please consider subscribing to my Patreon, as it would help me a lot, and also show some support, show some appreciation. And doing so, you will get access to this project with a bunch of exclusive content, but most importantly, you'll be able to kind of search through the stuff, the blueprints, the assets, and all that, and it'll help understand some things I just can't show in a tutorial. And I think I'll stop it there. That video is probably pretty long already. And so thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.